In this lesson, we're going to go into how to configure MongoChef. Now, you should have already installed MongoChef. If you haven't, go ahead and Google MongoChef. That's not chief, it's chef. Click on the download button. And of course, make sure you download the version for Mac and go through the process of installing it to your Mac. Now, before we get started with this, we need to make sure our database is up and running and our server is up and running. One note I will make is I went ahead and said after week 1, I went ahead and took a snapshot. Again, in case something goes wrong, we can always roll back to this point in time. I would recommend doing a snapshot, but I'm not requiring it. But in any case, when you're done, go ahead and hit the start, because we do need to have our VirtualBox up and running to do anything with Mongo, being that Mongo is installed only on the VirtualBox. It's not running on our Mac. It's running on the VirtualBox inside of the Mac. Hope that made sense. And it will take a moment to go ahead and start up. Once that's done, I'm actually going to minimize both of these as we won't need them no more. And I'm going to bring in terminal. And I'm going to run that SSH command that you should be all too familiar with by now. And our password is, of course, ADB. And now we are connected, and we can run Mongo if we choose to. Okay, so first thing we need to do is configure the security features in Mongo. By default, Mongo is unreachable by anything that isn't local. And here's what I mean. I said earlier that the VirtualBox doesn't know it's a VirtualBox. It thinks it's a full computer. So it assigns itself the IP address, and this is a specifically VirtualBox thing, 10.0.2.2. So right now, I'm technically logged into that box. So if I run a command to Mongo, it will respond. However, if I was to, say, install Mongo on your Mac and then try to connect to the VirtualBox, it wouldn't see it as the same computer. It would see it as a different computer. Even though the VirtualBox is running on the Mac, like I said, the VirtualBox doesn't know it's virtual. It would say, oh, you're coming in from another machine, and by default, Mongo doesn't allow connections from any other machine. So we need to go ahead and let Mongo accept external connections. And how you do that is type sudo nano, and we're going to edit this file. So it's /etc or etc /mongo_d.conf. Password is ADB. You may or may not be asked for the password. And this is the configuration file for Mongo, meaning every time Mongo starts, it reads this file and it decides like where to put your database. Well, it's in /var/lib/mongodb. Is journaling enabled? And journaling is just a nice fancy word for should I write stuff to the log file. And there's a bunch of other settings. I need you to scroll all the way down to here where you see bind IP address. And that's where we're saying that the bind IP address is set to 127.0.0.1. What we need to do is just change this to be 0.0.0.0. That's all. That'll go ahead and let any IP address now connect to Mongo. You still need a username and password, but this is just an additional filter where you can filter on their location as well as the username and password. So when we're done with that, hit the Control and X. It's going to say, do we want to save this? The answer is yes with a Y. Then it asks us the file name, and you just hit Enter to overwrite it. Okay, so now that we've updated this file, and you do have to do this, it will be necessary for future labs, we need to go ahead and restart Mongo. And the reason is Mongo, just like MySQL, will read their startup files upon startup, and then it ignores them. So the changes we made, changing this IP address, this bind IP, has not taken effect yet. So what I need to do is do sudo service. Service name is MongoD restart. And that's it. It should just come back like that, and we're done modifying it. Now, we already had, in week 1 in the beginning, forwarded port 27017 to 27017 on the Ubuntu server, the virtual box. So we don't need to do anything for that. But now this is all configured, we're going to go ahead and configure Mongo. And again, you should have installed it already. It should be up and running. And if I go ahead and I type, let's see, MongoChef, my version already has some of the settings in it. I'm going to go ahead and go through those settings with you anyway, because you'll need them. So I'll hit connect. And I have a whole bunch of servers I've connected to on different ports. The one we're interested in is ADB. Now you don't have any of these. So you're going to hit new connection. I'm going to hit edit. When I do that, the only thing you need to put in here is the name and put ADB. The connection type is direct, local host, and the port. And by default, there is, we haven't turned security on yet to need a username and password. So right now, it doesn't. So let's go ahead and hit test connection. Should say, let's see, in progress. And that usually takes a split second. So I'm assuming that something here is wrong. So let me cancel out of here again. Let's go to authentication. Oh, I have a username and password in here from previous. So I'm actually just going to erase those. You shouldn't have anything in here. This is from a later lesson in the class. And now I hit test connection. And it's still taking some time. So what I am going to do, if you're having problems, follow along with me. I'm going to open up the VirtualBox server and go over here into settings. And what I want to make sure is our network settings are correct. So let's go to network, let's go to port forwarding, and we should have 27017 goes to 27017. If that's there and that's correct, just hit OK, and that should be all the settings we need. This says it failed. And as I look through here, the full response is invalid database name code. Interesting. So let me go ahead and close this out. And what I will do is I'm actually going to delete this. And I'm going to do it the same as you would. I'm going to hit new connection. I'm going to call it ADB. I'm going to put localhost in there, and then hit test. It's funny what happens when you actually do it right. So now we got all of these correct. I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to go to ADB, select it, and just hit connect. And now here we are connected. Now here's something I want to do. I'm going to go over to my window now and type Mongo. And we're also connected to Mongo. So this window through Mongo terminal, meaning we type Mongo, is talking to Mongo, but this MongoChef, which is a GUI, that stands for Graphic Usable User Interface, is also connected over to Mongo. So we can actually do pretty much the same thing in either one. If I type show DBS here, it lets me know I have an ADB database and a local database. Well, graphically here, I have an ADB database and a local database. So if I want to use ADB, I can open this up, and there are collections: courses, location, and user. Well, if I say use ADB here, and then say show collections, and I spell it correctly, there are our three collections: courses, location, and user. And if I was to add one over here and rerun this, it would show they're both talking to the same location. They're both talking to the same database. Here's some things you can do, though, with MongoChef that you can't do on the command line. If I go into courses, I'm going to go ahead and just give them, let's go to users actually, and double click. It's going to go ahead and start off in this tree view. And here are all of the documents. I believe it only returns the first 1,000. Oh, the first 50 here, sorry. But you can change that to how many records you want to see. But I can open one up, and see that's the ID, that's the first name, username, date of birth. Here's all of the fields. And I can actually go in here and click them and say she is now a junior. And it will go ahead and run the update for me. Essentially, this is sort of like using, and I'll bring it up right now, SQL Pro. So if I go ahead and I connect to a database, and I choose a database, let's go and view the structure. I can view the content. Same thing like we're doing here. We're viewing the structure. Again, it's not a set structure. We can modify the data. Because it's in JSON, we get a couple different views. So this is the tree view. The table view tries to force it into a spreadsheet format like this. So if you look here, it's ID, first name, last name. But if you scroll over, what you'll see is like age, and not everyone has an age. So you will see age in there for some, and the rest are blank. Same thing for height and eye color. So spreadsheet's an okay way to do it. Spreadsheet view, the table view. I personally like looking at the JSON view because it does do its indentation. It does let you see each of the records. And by the way, you can go in here, and if you right-click, you get a lot of options. I love going down to Edit JSON. This lets you go in and actually change whatever you want. So this person is active, they are deleted. And if I hit Update, deleted. Which is a little easier than going over here and doing like that db.user.find1 and then finding the record and pulling it down. This is essentially doing the same thing, but it's doing it more graphically. One other thing you can do is you can click on this IntelliShell here, and you can see db.user.find. And if I hit this, here's a find of all those records. It only displays 50, but again, I could go ahead and say find and type in here. So I can issue the same commands here as I would over on the command line. So I can say where the user type is Overlord. Let's see, O-V-E-R. Oh, I have my caps locks on. That's what I wanted to type. All right, let's change this because I guess I hit caps locks, T-Y-P-E. Eventually I'll get this right. And there's our Tony Stark as the Overlord. You don't need to put a pretty, it will auto-pretty it here. So I wanted to show you that these GUIs are available, the same as SQL Pro. We spent most of our time is available. In fact, you may want to think of IntelliShell as the same thing as this query window. Because over here, remember, I could say like select star from users and run that query. I don't have a user table. Let's do item. Sort of like what we're doing over here is typing in a command and then hitting run. And by the way, this does have these tabs, so you can switch back and forth. For some stuff, let me close out of this. This is going to be easier, meaning the Mongo terminal. If you choose, I use it in conjunction. I don't use this exclusively, but I do like having the ability to go ahead and refresh and see data without having to type commands. So you may want to use the two of them in conjunction. Either way, this is one of only 2 other GUIs I know that are available for Mongo. Again, Mongo is fairly new in the last 10 years, and there's MongoChef. There was RoboMongo, and then there's another one which is actually made by Mongo called Mongo Compass, which works a little differently. But anyway, I just want to give you all the tools available so you can understand Mongo through and through.